Take a look at this. This is the like and dislike counter on YouTube. Or it was the dislike counter, until they removed it in November of 2021. Creators and users went furious because the dislike count was a trust signal. A 90% dislike ratio on a tutorial told you not to waste 10 minutes of your time. And look who got saved. These are videos from billion-dollar advertisers that pay YouTube's bills. But then, a researcher at the University of Zurich discovered that female creators were getting 43% more dislikes than men for the same content. After YouTube hit the count, a 57% drop in negative feedback and 8.4% more content produced by women. Today the button is still there, but all of this happened because they decided to remove the small counter. But this seemingly small decision, well, it's not a design decision. It's not a business decision. It's not even a technical engineering decision either. This is something else. This is a product decision. And while almost nobody talks about them, they're what's behind most of the tech you use every day. Some were genius, and they're what makes your favorite products work. And yeah, some were incredibly stupid. But once you understand how they worked, you'll finally start to understand much more about the tech you use every day and what actually goes on in Silicon Valley. See, there's actually 4 levels of product decisions. At level 2, there's things like our dislike counter. Level 3 decisions are what I was responsible for when I was a product manager working in tech, and now that I'm a founder, my day job is making level 4 product decisions. But to understand this, let's start with something you're probably very familiar with. You know what these are. Apple is full of incredible designers. They're one of the best in the world, and from a pure design perspective, they would definitely try to make iMessage and non-iMessage chats seamless. Maybe a small batch to distinguish them, but that's it. Apple is also full of incredible engineers, and there's already a cross-platform standard called RCS to have basically the same experience with texting on Android and iOS. But the green bubbles for Android users, the limited features, that is a product decision. And this is the counterintuitive thing about product decisions. They are very hard for the average user to understand because they're not driven by what's the limitation or by just pure design and we want to make things more user-friendly. Instead, they're optimizing for, does this bring the product closer to our product strategy? And don't worry, we're going to talk about product strategy in level 4. So let's say you're a product manager for a project management tool. You have thousands of customers all asking you for different things. Hey, I need a new view to break down my projects. I absolutely need to export things to CSV. Hey, I need faster search. Hey, I need this. Hey, I need that. What do? Well, you can just take all the feature requests, order them by top to bottom, and start building from the top. But instead, you decide to ignore all these people, all your customers, and you decide to dedicate your engineer's time to building this. A little indicator on the login screen that securely tells you what was the last used login method on this page. Now, nobody asked for this. Your thousands of customers all needed those other things. But instead, this little seemingly insignificant change made it easier for infrequent users to log in, driving 3.4 extra retention for that cohort. Your product was riddled with thousands of empty accounts because people didn't remember which login option they used, whether it's Facebook, Apple, or Google, and they ended up creating new accounts by mistake, messing up your metrics. And now, thanks to this small little badge, that's reduced by 78%. By the way, this is why this little box is popping up in so many products. Here's Lovable, here's For Sale, and this is the weirdness of product decision. While common sense would have you build what your users ask you and what they desperately need, your job instead is to do something different. So you're transferring some money from your bank, and then they text you a code to verify. So you should open your messages, fiddle around with selecting the right piece of text, you open the bank app and paste that in. But instead, look at that. The iPhone automatically detects this very common situation and has the code ready for you just above the keyboard. Now, here's the thing. If you had interviewed iPhone users in 2017 before this was introduced and asked them what do they want out of iOS 12, not a single one would have said, please make the 6-digit code appear above my keyboard. They would say more apps, bigger battery, better screen, or fixing a bug, because one of the most important rules in product management and how product decisions are actually made is exactly this. Don't listen to what users say. Instead, look at what users do. And this is the difference between mediocre products and great ones. You've seen it before. Products that were once simple and straightforward became bloated with all sorts of AI assistants, smart features, endless lists of toggles and options because someone somewhere asked for that option. Instead, what you should do is ignore that and observe, say, a user using an iPhone and see him grunting and being frustrated when he has to go back and forth for the authentication code. But this principle also comes with its dark sides. While it's used to build in intuitive, amazing products. It's also behind some of the most controversial choices that you see every single day. Instagram users say they want a chronological feed for their friends, but their behavior is actually spending way more time in an infinitely scrolling feed of slop. YouTube users, including myself, say they don't want shorts, that they are annoying, and people go out of their way to install extensions to get rid of shorts. And what people actually do is watching the shorts, driving more time on the platform. And I can assure you, if shorts didn't drive more time on the platform, they'll be immediately removed. These are not design decisions or engineering decisions. They're decisions about what the product is, what it's promising, who's it for, how's it positioned in your head. Level 1 product decisions can also be used for marketing. Have you ever seen this? Every video on TikTok that gets exported from the app has watermarks and this outro. Once again, it's not a decision made by a designer, because this is actually annoying for the user. It's not a technical decision from an engineer either, because you actually need more processing to add those watermarks and ending in. But it's a product decision that put the TikTok logo in front of billions of people. And if you think it's just sneaky social media companies that do this, does this look familiar? That sent from my iPhone signature was added by default on the email client on the iPhone by a guy that did know a thing or two about building products. But we're still at level 1. See, these were the small visual and design details that, if you look closely, are really product decisions. But with level 2, we start to see how these can become much more powerful, thanks to information control. If you're old enough to have used Facebook, you've probably come across this, a little box that recommends people you may know. On the surface, it seems harmless, but this is actually one of the most powerful product decisions in the history of tech. See, in 2007, Facebook had a problem. It hit 90 million users, but growth was stalling. Users were signing up, but they wouldn't add any friends. They found out if a new user didn't add 7 friends, they're gone. So a small team was assembled, led by Chamath Palihapitiya, and they built this little card to fix that one number. And it worked, even too well. See, when you signed up, even if you didn't give consent to share your contacts library, you still magically have people you actually know recommended to you. See, even if you never uploaded your contacts, if your phone number or email actually appeared in someone else's address book, Facebook attached it to your account as a shadow contact. They ran an algorithm called triangle closing. If Luke knows Leia and Leia knows Jabba, then maybe Luke knows Jabba. So the typical user had around 40,000 friends of friends candidates ready to be scored and ranked. And these are just some of the practices they did to power this feature. Now, the design approach here would be, yeah, this would be a cool feature, but I don't know if we can get some recommendations in, there's some privacy concerns. The engineering approach would actually be, let's not do it. It would be massively complex and require lots of computation and complex system to scale this to millions of people. But the product decision is recognizing that this little box is a difference between a new user sticking to Facebook or dropping off. So putting an entire team, massive amounts of resources, and every means necessary to this little box was the correct decision. It works so well that a psychiatrist noticed her own patients being suggested to each other. There was an internal rule that literally said, don't suggest the mistress to the wife. Now, regardless of what you think about this, you cannot deny that this product decision was a massive success. It's not by accident that Chamath, the man that built all this, ended up becoming one of the most influential people in Silicon Valley. So does this mean that all product decisions are evil and exploitative? Well, no. They're simply driven by product guidelines. And if your product guidelines are to grow at all costs without thinking about privacy, well, this is what you get. Remember the example of the dislike button in the beginning? That's an example of a level 2 product decision that had positive effects on creators' mental health. But so far, these have all been product decisions that, while meaningful, they don't change what the actual product is. Social media is still social media. A video site is still a video site, but with level 3 decisions, that's about to change. But before we get to the next level, there's another kind of next level that I want to show you. These are all websites, and they've all been created with the sponsor of this video and friend of the channel, Framer. And I know what you're thinking. These are fancy. How the hell can I create something like that? You have cool animations. You have things like you would never believe belong in an actual website builder. Let's be honest. Today, there's many ways to create a website. You can vibe code it. You can even use a website builder and drag and drop some blocks. But in a world where everyone can do that, how can you make your website stand out? How can you make your website something unique, something playful, something creative, something fun? I mean, look at this, or even this one. Well, this is exactly what Framer allows you to do. Not only has all the features and the functionalities you would expect, from a CMS to quick publishing to integrations with Figma, Framer gives you real creative control. I mean, they're literally building shaders that you can use on any image or SVG in real time. What other website builder lets you create complex animation with precise physics-based controls on exactly how the animation moves and the easing curves? Framer is the only website builder where if you can actually imagine it, you can just go build it. You can check out Framer with the link in the description. And you can use the code Enrico1 to get a free month of Framer Pro. And now back to the video, because we're at level 3. Take a look at this. This was the dashboard page of my own product Flask. And this is how it looked like after a level 3 product decision that I took. Now, forget about the styling and the color changes, that's nice, but these are design decisions. Because this is actually a level 3 product decision and a very big one. Let me give you some context. Flask has always been in the video collaboration space. So I'm competing with tools like Frame.io from Adobe and a bunch of others. And they all look like kind of the same. They all essentially work like a Google Drive folder type with some comments next to the video. And this is a pattern that's basically in every single product in the industry. But once I started talking to the users of these tools, I actually realized that they never use the storage part of things. Then they just use them for commenting and giving feedback, and it was something incredibly annoying and painful to do. But what I noticed is that looking at Flask, my home product, it looked like a drive as well. It looked like all the others. You have your folders, you drag and drop, you upload, you organize your files. It's a drive. It looks like a drive. Now, look at what I did with the redesign. Here you have a new massive section that makes it kind of empty, with a box dedicated to uploading a new assets and immediately start giving feedback. And here are your recent assets. Now, this looks like a simple design decision, but it's not. It's a massive product decision. See, the folders are still down here. You actually didn't even need this entire section because there's a plus icon up there. You can just upload things. So this is actually a duplicate. So was this all for nothing? Well, no. This interface creates a different usage pattern than my competitors. It doesn't look like a drive anymore, so you don't use it like a drive. It's a product where you add your asset quickly and immediately you can record feedback instead of typing, which is my main differentiation. This is a different kind of product. I effectively created a new category and repositioned my product into it. But notice that on the surface and the actual functionality of the product, it's exactly the same. These are the decisions that could turn a product from a failure to a smashing success. This was Loom in 2019. It was a user research tool where users could record themselves as they talk through the website and tell you what they think of it. It was okay. User research tool, small audience, slow growth, until they realized that people were using this tool not just to give feedback to websites, but to share recordings of anything. They were hacking it to use it as a communication tool. So they took the product decision to reframe the product from video-based user research to async video messaging for work. Now, the recording UI, it's the same. The whole engineering from processing recordings, it's the same. The player is the same. But this seemingly simple decision skyrocketed their growth, and they were bought 3 years later for almost $1 billion. And now, while massively important, these level 3 product decisions are about reframing a product. But level 4 decisions are what happens when you actually want to build a multi-product strategy, and it's basically the full-time job of most CEOs and founders. This is Google in 2002. On the surface, they looked unstoppable. But Larry Page and Sergey Brin, the two Google founders, were actually freaking out. See, at the time, 90% of the internet ran through the dreaded and now memed Internet Explorer browser. They knew that the day Microsoft decided to build their own search engine, Google was basically dead. But they had something that could maybe work. There was this small team, led by a guy named Sundar, and they were working on something very popular at the time. A toolbar for Internet Explorer, the Google toolbar. It's a little helper feature. But soon, they realized that this toolbar is not just a nice little project, it's actually a Trojan horse, a way to get Internet Explorer users, or really any user, to use their real money-making product, which is Google Search. See, level 4 is not about a decision on a single product, but how you orchestrate multiple ones into a product strategy. And what they just figured out was one of the most successful product strategies of all time. Build or acquire something incredibly cool, useful, and innovative, like free email with absurd amounts of space, or literally mapping the entire world, building an open source operating system. Each one of these things cost billions of dollars, but they're all part of a strategy. See, Gmail back in the day prompted you to install the Google toolbar. If you install Google Earth, look at what they sneaked in the installer, the Google toolbar. Android? Yeah, they're spending billions to develop it, but guess what the default search engine is gonna be for this operating system? And remember Sundar, the product manager of the Google toolbar? Well, he's like, guys, we should just build our own browser. And you know how that ended. That guy is now literally the CEO of the company. See, these are the kinds of decisions that led to, I don't know, killing most of a company's products to start from scratch from basically nothing just to create the most successful lineup of products in history, or spend $19 billion to acquire a messaging service. This is the last level, but there's something else. See, sometimes even a simple, tiny decision can have a huge impact, possibly even more than a level 4 one. And that decision is a little line of code that changed one little parameter, which led to basically how our tech works today. And you can learn all about it in this video right here. I'm Enrico, and I'll see you in the next one.